topic of decimals. In this topic we will cover the basics of decimals, and later in the future we will see how we use decimals with fractions and percentages. So in this topic we will be able to recognize decimal numbers and its properties, to be able to order and round off decimal numbers, and lastly to be able to add and subtract decimal numbers. Alright, now first thing what we're going to do is we're going to look at the decimal number itself. Okay, now how a decimal number is basically you have a point. Okay, so this is a point called the decimal point. Right, when a number has this whole thing is called a decimal number. Alright, so I'm going to label it here. Right, this point is called a decimal point. Alright, now whenever you see this dot or this point, you will know that the number is in decimals. Okay, now first thing we need to recognize is the base number in a decimal number. So what I mean by that is usually we have numbers like, for example, 1, 2, 5, 7 and so forth, right? All these numbers are called whole numbers. Alright, the decimals are built around this number. So in this case, the number that we're looking at as the base number here, it will be the 3, because 3 will be in the position of units. Alright, 3, and after this number 3 is where the decimal point begins and the decimal numbers appear. Alright, so if the 3 is in unit, then the 2 is in the position of tens. Alright, and the 1 here will be in the position of hundreds. Alright, so this is what we've learned before. So when we have a number, so if we ignore the whole decimal area here, this is 123. Okay, so 1 at the hundreds position, 2 at the tens, 3 at the unit position. Right, now in decimals, after the point we have numbers ongoing here. So you can see 4, 5 and 6. We refer from the number that's in the unit. So in decimals, the number 4 here will be the opposite of the 2. So for example, if I were to say 3, if I refer to this number 2, here is tens, and I refer to that, what would it be called? It would be called a tenths with the th. Right, that's the difference here. Alright, so if you refer the same way, 5 would be called hundreds, and 6 here would be thousands with the th. Alright, so note that in decimals they are actually the same, the name are the same, except in the opposite direction where you add th at the end. Okay, you see here th. Okay, so this is how the decimal number is labeled. So if I were to read this whole number, how would I read it? Is 123, then here 0.456 or 123.456. Okay, so you must always state the point. Right, in this segment what we'll do is we will order and round decimals. Alright, so first part we will cover rounding of the decimal numbers. Okay, we have two numbers I've stated here, A and B. Okay, we'll do them one by one. Now the question here asks round off the to the nearest tenths. Right, so 4, 5, 6. Right, so the nearest tenths here is the number 4. Okay, so then what we do is we round off like we always do. Alright, we've learned rounding off, so we do rounding off as we always do. We refer to the number to the right. Okay, if it's 5 and above, you will round up. By that I mean you will add 1 here, and remaining numbers that direction will turn 0. So your answer here will be 46.5. Okay, you round off just as same as you do whole numbers. Okay, now if we go look at B, we have 46.54. Okay, again to the nearest tenth, so let's use tenths here. Alright, so we have 5. We look at the number to the right, it's less than 5, so what we do is we just turn all the numbers after it 0, and this will be 46.5 as well. Okay, now in the next question here it says round off to the nearest whole number. Okay, now nearest whole number, what it means is from before, I've explained that any number after the point becomes decimal. So here the whole number is this, right? The number that is on the left side of the point is the whole number. So when we're rounding off nearest to the nearest whole number, the closest whole number here to the point would be number 6, right? So we refer here, okay, and we round off. Again, we turn all of this to zeros, and since it's 4 less than 5, we don't add anything. So the answer here will be 46.00, or you can just write it as 46. Okay, we can ignore 0. If all the numbers after the decimal points are 0, you don't have to write all the zeros. Okay, you can just write as the whole number itself. Okay, now similarly we have 46.54. we apply the same thing. We look at the 6, right? Look at it, it's 5 and above, so we add 1 here, the remaining ones turn 0. So the answer here will be 47.00, or you can simply just write it as 47. Alright, now when we're ordering decimal numbers, okay, so we have a bunch of decimal numbers here. We order the same way we do with normal whole numbers as we've done before. Okay, so for example, we have 5.22, we have 2.5, 0.52, 2.05, 5.02. Right, what we do is here we look at the number before the decimal point. We have numbers here. Right, this will tell us which is the smallest and which is the biggest. Right, so we go look to them. We have a 5, we have a 2, we have a 0, we have a 2, and then we have a 5 again. So clearly the smallest here is the 0. So we write 0.52 in the smallest. Okay, so after we've removed this, we look at the next smallest, which we have 2's, right? We have 2's here, these 2 and this 2, right? Now at this point you will look after you look to the numbers after the decimal point. So we have the number 5 here, we have the number 0. Okay, now I'm just going to write this separately. Alright, here what you can do is 2.5 is actually 2.50, right? And the other number 2.05 is like that. Okay, so you can compare it this way as well. So by looking at this, you know 2.0, the 0 here is smaller. So the next number here should be 2.05 and then 2.5. Right, now similarly we will look at number the one with 5 now. It has a very similar pattern, 5.22 and 5.02. Okay, again now we're looking at this number. We know 5.0 is the smaller one, and only after that the 2 is here, larger. So the next two numbers here would be 5.02, and lastly the number is 5.22. Right, so now we're going to quickly go through addition and subtraction in decimal numbers. Alright, so we also do this very similarly to normal whole numbers. So let's just do that working here. So we have 36.7 with 18.5. Right, we add them as normal. Okay, so one of the ways we do adding is we use partitioning. So I'll go through the partitioning version first. So we have 36.7 here. So we could we look at the tens here, right? Sorry, these are tens. All right, these are tens. If I were to take out this number, right, at the tens, so let's just say at the tens, right, this number will be 30.0. This number will be 10.0. We add them together, we get 40.0. So I'm going to write that down here, 40.0. All right, then we look at the units themselves here. So I'm going to write here units. Okay, units, we have 6.0 and 8.0. Add them together, you get 14.0. Okay, so the next number here will be 14.0. Okay, and lastly at this decimals, which is at the 10th position, so we'll write that in black, 10th, right? We have 0.7 and 0.5, which now we add them as normal. So 7 plus 5 is 12. So 2 goes here and 1 shifts to the number after the decimal. So this becomes 1.2. right? So we write that down, 1.2, and then we add them together. Now please note here that the decimal points are always in order, in arrangement. Here you can see, right, the numbers don't move. The decimal point is where you will write the numbers so that they're arranged properly. Alright, so now let's add them up together. You get 2 here, you get 5 and 5. So your answer here will be 55.2. Now alternatively, what you can do is you could just add normally, the same way as we do with the numbers. So I'm going to do that in black, right? So 36.7, 18.5, right? 7 plus 5 is 12, so plus 1 here. 6 plus 8 is 14, plus that 1 will be 15. So write the 5 and the 1 from the 15 goes up here. This is used. Now we do 3 plus 1, which is 4, plus the 1 on top will be 5. And tada, you get the same answer. Alright, it works just as same as normal addition. Just that the most important here is make sure you arrange the numbers according to the decimal point. You can see this whole decimal point, how I've arranged them. Okay, some are small, some are big. Alright, so subtraction works the same way. We have 32.5, 5.8. Alright, they work the same. So how do we do this? 5 minus 8. 5 is too small, so we have to lend. So we take from here, make it 1. This becomes 15. Right, just the same. So then this will be 7. Right, 15 minus 8 will be 7. 1 is too small, we take from here, then there, this will become 11 now, and this 11 minus 5 is 6, and the last number is 2. We get 26.7. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of multiplication with decimals. Alright, so let's say for example I have the number 300 divided by 10. Alright, so there's an easy way of doing this in decimal form. Alright, so what we can do is we use decimal points. So 300, I'm going to write here, 300 technically is decimal point 000 and so forth. So that means there would be a decimal point here. So when you have a divide by 10 for decimals, you would move that decimal point to the left when it is a division. So your answer here would be 30.0, which is 30. Okay, now similarly if I were to say maybe 30.72 maybe for example, and I divide that by 10, right, it works the same. We have 0, so we move the point to the left, okay, to the point here. So your answer here will be, you know what, I'll write it in red, the answer 3.072. Okay, this works both for not just tens, can be hundreds as well. So if, let's say another example, I would give you 55.7 divide by let's say 1000. Alright, okay, 0 here we only move once because we only have 1 0, right? In this case we have 3 zeros, so we move the decimal point to the left 3 times. Okay, so we have 1, 2 and 3. The decimal point will be here, and the gap here, it will be a 0, and after the decimal point will be 0. So your answer here will be 0.0557. Alright, now that's for division. Now if I were to take the same numbers, alright, let me just split this a bit. Oops. Right, if I were to take the same numbers and do multiplication, alright, times 10, right, it works the same. So let's just put that decimal point since it's there, but instead of moving left, what happens here is it moves to the right. Okay, it becomes bigger. So put the 0 here and your answer will become 3000. Okay, you move the decimal point. Okay, now let's do with the next two numbers similar. Right, we have 30.72 times 10. Right, we have the decimal point. Okay, since it's times and 0, which you only have 1, so we only move it once. to the right, and your answer here will be the decimal here now, the 307.2. Okay, now the last one we do the 1000 as well, so we have 55.7 times 1000, right, will equals to, okay, we have a point, we have 3, so we have to move it 3 times. I'm going to rewrite this just to get some space. Okay, we have 55.7, right, so we have 3 times, so we have 1, 2 and 3, which would give us 2 extra zeros at this gap, and your answer here will be 55,700.